Because everybody knew who Khalid was. And everybody knew that this was actually, as Basram named him, Saifullah al-Maslul, the unsheathed sword of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We mourn people like this. Tabki alayhim as-sama. The heavens themselves weep for people like this. People who were so selfless, people who used all what they had for the propagation of Islam. Yes, such a person was worthy of being mourned. Allah. Before talking about Khalid's lasting influence, the first thing is that in anything one does, you should try as much as possible to be perfect in it. And the reason why Khalid has this attention is being perfect on the battlefield. Right? This is what it shows. And then the fact of the matter is that what everybody would learn from Khalid's legacy is the fact that war or fights are not always won by brute strength. There's always a role for intelligence even in the most bloody of conflicts. Right? You have to be able to plan your supply chains, the food, the water that you will need. You have to be able to provide for your army. You have to be able to study the weakness of your opponent and use that weakness against them. So that's why I said that one of the most important things that Khalid does is his ability to intelligently study his enemy, identify the weak point, and utilize that weak point against whosoever his enemy would be. Okay, basically, so let me come from the jurisprudential angle first. We don't like the Sahabas to be depicted in films, right? But there's always a way. People who are creative with some of these things are able to find a way around it, right? It could be animated. You may not likely have Khalid being represented fully, as was done in the message where Islam was not represented fully. And of course, the part of the movie I always like is probably the ending, where he was mourning the fact that he was dying on the deathbed, and then his exploit, where he was actually in the midst of battle. When he said at the battle of the Mu'tah, where he said, I exhausted the use of 9 swords before I was able to use the last one, which was a Yemeni sword. It shows how thick and how serious the battle was at that point in time. So action scenes, of course, will always garner people's interest. And in that particular deathbed scene, where he lamented his death on the bed, would have been a very emotional one. We try to explain Khalid ibn Al-Walid in the context of military history. This U.S. general, David Petraeus, and then what did Petraeus did? what did he do when the U.S. army was getting bogged down in Iraq, and then he was able to think and say, look, we can't continue this way. Then he went to meet the tribes of the Iraqi tribes who were fighting against them, and then the U.S. government paid them heavily, right, to stop shooting at them, and then they were able to have a semblance of peace in Iraq. That is and that is exactly the type of person Khalid ibn Walid was. I mean, he was able to sit down and study the battle and feel like, okay, what am I going to do? So, in the annals of generals, that is when we discuss Khalid ibn Walid. And I think that a contemporary Western historian who does this, I've seen one of his clips, Professor Cassandra, I don't know if I got his name correctly, he talked about Khalid ibn Walid and his exploits on the battlefield. So when we talk about generals and war, which is an extension of every human endeavor, right, we will mention the likes of Khalid ibn Walid, the sword of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Basically, it's war prowess, the fact that he's been successful. People would have this sort of confidence and say, oh, who is the leader of the army? Okay, it's Khalid. Okay, yeah, chances are they're going to win the war. And then basically, I think it was one of the reasons why Imam al-Khattab decided that, okay, look, victory is not only tied to Khalid ibn Walid. Others also can be successful. So Khalid was removed, the Muslims still won the war. But yes, the fact that Khalid leads the battle sort of gives the confidence that he would win the war. The story in itself teaches humility and leadership. The fact that, look, when there is when there's a higher command, for you to fulfill a higher purpose, you are supposed to step down your own desires. Khalid could have refused, and Umar ibn Khattab was not going to raise any army from Medina to go and bring down Khalid from the position. So it shows that he was a humble person, he was a sincere person. If it were not for the fact that he was sincere and humble, and fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it would have continued. This is a lesson everybody needs to pick from his life. Well, basically, it's a bit difficult to run such comparison in the sense that Alexander the Great had the power of an empire behind him. And he was a leader who was absolute. Khalid ibn Walid was just a commander in the Muslim army. And the Muslim army at that time was not even a regular army. It was just a large group of people who volunteered for the army, who were not always properly equipped. So running a comparison with so much differences may be a little bit difficult. But yes, Khalid would be on the same pedestal, or probably even higher pedestal, like the greatest conquerors of the earth. Timetable is not possible as far as we know. And if he could, he would not be exactly pleased with the Islam of Nigerians. Not Khalid ibn Walid alone, any Muslim at that time who came back to our own period and saw how the Muslims are, how the fact that a lot of our Islam is culturalized, sees the fact that our commitment to the values we say we uphold are watery, see the fact that we lack the courage to actually stick to our Islam, is going to be disappointed and is going to look at us and say that, look, we bled for this religion. We bled for this religion. Look at how you guys are dealing with it. Allah. Basically, let's just learn two major things from Khalid ibn Walid, Ibn Mughira, and Makhzum, and that is bravery and then strategy. One has to be brave in whatever decision you are taking in life, and one has to be strategic with whatever decision you're taking in life. Life is about, there's a time to fight and there's a time for flight. There's a time for you to stay at the battlefield and decide I'm not moving an inch, and there's a time to decide that yes, it's time to retreat. This is the life of Khalid ibn Walid, and it's what we should all imbibe. If Khalid ibn Walid was a guest here, I think the very first question to ask him was, how did you see the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? What was the impact of you seeing the Prophet himself in your life? Well, if number one, he would not have the time for WhatsApp. So, and then if he were in communication with us, there's no doubt Khalid ibn Walid would always be talking about the next battle against those who are the enemies of Islam. Probably it's going to be the missile of Allah. Most likely, we would have beaten them out of the traffic. A lot of Lagos traffic is based on just the inability to make yourself conform to traffic rules, right? And then the Sahaba, not Khalid alone, Umar ibn Khattab, did not tolerate you flouting the rules. So if Khalid ibn Walid was going to undo Lagos traffic, we should be rest assured that there won't be much Lagos traffic because it's going to deal with those who are flouting the rules. That was the type of person we know him to be. Definitely, Khalid ibn Walid will not be a football fan. The reason he will not be is because they did not have the time for such frivolities. I mean, football is basically 22 men running after a leather ball filled with hair for a period of 1 hour and some minutes. Khalid ibn Walid would have been shell-shocked to see that men were wasting their time on such an endeavor. Probably the sport that Khalid ibn Walid would have loved would probably be something like horse racing, whereby you are showing your masculinity about riding the horse, and then learn how to be a very good horseman. Allah. I think that the most likely title is going to be Battles I Won, or How I Won My Battles. I think that is the most significant part of his life. And if he was going to tell us anything about it, that is what he's going to tell us about. It's very simple. You're always going to overcome your setback if you are strategic enough. That is the lesson. For Khalid ibn Walid, there is at the Battle of Khandak, he made sure that he was exploring every opening, every weakness until he found none. So, in as much as one has a Khalid ibn Walid mindset, is the fact that you can overcome any obstacle in as much as you are strategic enough about it. Strategic enough to identify how to work, and brave enough to follow through with whatever you have concluded. Yes. So on his plate, he's going to have dates or water to break his fast. He's probably going to have his bread and milk, the traditional Arab food. He most likely will not like our eba and amala. I wouldn't use the word back down from a challenge. I would use the word Khalid never backed down from a challenge, except he was going to devise a way of overcoming that challenge. That is the way I think we should put it. When he withdrew from something, his withdrawal is going to be based on a particular strategy he has seen, and that will allow him to come back to actually come around and win that obstacle. So if there's an obstacle and we continue throwing ourselves at it, without really looking for how to solve it, right? We would always come up with the same result. But if we sit down, think about it, and then identify the weakness, and then go to it again, chances are we would be successful. Then the nickname summarizes that. Saifullah al-Maslul, unsheathed sword of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Basically, we've learned how it went to war, and war is not for the faint-hearted. And it's that faith and discipline that kept him on. Fasting itself is attached to faith and discipline. You would only somebody who has faith would drop his food from dawn to dusk with nobody watching over his shoulders, nobody monitoring him with a CCTV. He fasts for Allah, he or she fasts for Allah and Allah alone. That's faith. And then there's discipline. For you to drop your food and drink, nobody watching over you, also requires discipline. So these things that we have in the life of Khalid ibn Al-Walid that motivated him to face the greatest of armies is still there in our life as Muslims that allows us to traverse the month of Ramadan. We just need to build more on it. So there's not only Ramadan alone, it's every facet and aspect of our life that would have that courage and discipline and faith to be able to pass it. May Allah make it easy for us.